Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Jack Bigadoo, also known as the Hood Sommelier, but today we are on a little bit early and we are off on an odd day. There is a reason why. We have, in my book, one of the brightest mind in whiskey in the last 5 years on the show today. One of the greatest thing that I realize is that things seem to change, but not really till someone walks in and really change things. And we've seen this in a lot of distillery with women coming in, more young blood coming in. But today we're talking about a brand that you've known for a while, that been in the market, have established itself, but obviously that decided to spruce things out and change things out. And it only takes one person and a team to kind of change the vision of things. So if you're here, put in the comments, say hello, say hi. This man doesn't like to be seen outside. He's probably one of the most shyest person I've ever met. But when it comes to whiskey, he is a evil genius. That's the best way I put it. So if you hear, you are on Facebook, you're on LinkedIn, you're on YouTube, on X, share, like, interact with us. We are talking about none other than Angel's Envy. Angel's Envy has been in the market for a long time, but today we are calling it the case of Owen Martin because his name is Owen Martin. He has been in the industry for a long time, but like I said, he's a shy guy. He just swing by. He does his thing. He doesn't look for trouble, and he just don't go around starting. He's more of the old hip hop area. Don't start none, it won't be none. That's how he is. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to welcome my friend, uh, master distiller, crazy man in charge of what is happening now at Angel's Envy, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Owen Martin. If my computer will let me, let's welcome Owen to the show. What's up, Owen?
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, Owen is here. Everybody say hello to Owen. We want to see in the comment. Welcome him to the show. This is the first time. I'm pretty sure I'm his first, as far as being like on all stage at one.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure I'm his first now because he did. It took me a year when I to secure this because I met him probably a couple months before when he started at Angels Envy. And I say, "Who are you?" And he said, "My name is Owen." I say, "Owen, what are you doing here?" He said, "I make whiskey." And I said, "Okay. Um, I I want to know what you're making." He say, "Patience, young Jedi. You'll get to see what I make in a bit." And I said, "All right." And Lord behold, since Owen had been here, we had some new expression, we had some new amazing thing. And you know what? Welcome, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think that is maybe the kindest introduction I've ever got. So I really appreciate you, Jack. Um, yeah. So Jack and I met, I think it was two bourbon classics ago, right?
Yes.
So 2 Februarys ago and hit it off immediately. And yeah, I know I made you wait for a little bit and be patient on it, but I think what we got to show off is going to be worth that wait. And honestly, it's just the start. Like we got so many cool things teed up this year. This is just the beginning of it, but we can get into that a little bit later.
I will tell you what, I'm glad I waited because I thought at the beginning we were having some amazing, you already started, you set the tone with some amazing stuff, but no, little did I know there was so much more coming on. There is so much more happening that I was like, no way. This man is here to change things, and he's here to change everything and kind of flip the script on his head. So for all the people who don't know you, as I'm actually adding one more channel because I had a couple people from Instagram say, "Oh, we want to see him on Instagram," and I say, "Yeah, he's a celebrity, so I'll make sure he's on Instagram." So, uh, for all the people who don't know you, who is Owen Martin?
Yeah, all right. I'll give you the elevator pitch. So I'm from Kansas City originally. I was kind of en route to be an engineer. I was in engineering school. Um, Knew that wasn't really the route I wanted to go as I got further into that with internships and whatnot. So I'd been brewing beer throughout college. This kind of goes back to like in my childhood, I was always very focused on playing around with flavors and whatnot, not really in like a chef sense, but I was the kid who had the like 32-ounce cup blending different sodas together, all that stuff. So maybe just more generally curious about flavors and how those go together. Um, and kind of decided that by the end of engineering school, I wanted to go away from that completely and get into beer. So looking back, this was where craft beer had sort of been at its absolute peak. There was a few brewing schools in the U.S., but they were like 1 to 2 years waitlisted. They're really expensive, and ultimately, you just came out of that with like a certificate. So it's funny, we talk about Jack, be patient. I got things coming, or even, this is an industry of patience, right? We got to lay things down and wait. But in the moment, I was not patient at all. So I kind of jumped around, Googling, seeing what was out there, and eventually came to a university called Harriet Watt University in Edinburgh, Scotland, and it kind of checked all the boxes. It was a master's degree. You needed a technical undergraduate to apply, and ultimately it was a dual brewing and distilling degree. So I went into it, packed up my bags, moved to Scotland, jumped in right in the deep end, really intending on solidifying my brewing experience with a formal education. But I kind of punked myself in that, I lived in Scotland long enough, got into it with beer in mind, but what do you do in Scotland? You drink scotch.
You drink scotch.
And the pubs there were incredible. My classmates were incredible, and a lot of them were Europeans focused on whiskey, and really kind of helped me jump into that game. And sure enough, I did my thesis with a lowland distillery there, and by the end of the program, I packed up and moved straight back to the U.S. to make bourbon. So made bourbon for a couple of years at a small distillery in Arkansas, before a friend who I'd met in Scotland actually kind of vouched for me to get a job in Colorado, in Denver, at a place called Stranahan's. And so I was there for a little shy of 7 years, and I worked my way from night distiller to fermentation lead to R&D to eventually head distiller and production manager. By the time I kind of finished up there, I was mostly blending our special releases. That was probably my primary job duty, other than overseeing like general production. And so the parallel between Stranahan's and Angel's Envy was that I kind of had built up this library of cask I'd like to play with, different brandy barrels, different wine barrels, and how those played with the malt that I was making there. But when the Angel's Envy job came up, it was really one, it kind of felt like a step into the big leagues going into Kentucky. But then not only with that, but I was able to take my knowledge that I developed with tequila barrels, with wine barrels, with spirit barrels, and apply that to now bourbon and rye and other whiskeys. And so really just kind of opened up a larger playing field to experiment with. And, in another sense, in another analogy, it gave me a wider palette of colors to paint with. So that was a year and a half ago. Like you said, I met you a couple months in, being in Louisville, being in Kentucky, something special, man. And like, to have jumped into this industry, especially as kind of an outsider, both from a Scotch sense and maybe more of a craft distilling sense, like I didn't really know what to expect here. And honestly, the community here has been incredible. And I mean that all the way from producers to, people like you that are helping inform the customer, inform the end user of what we're doing. And my wife and I have just really loved Louisville, really loved the community we found ourselves in, and I couldn't be happier.
And we are happy you're here, and we are glad you're in a domain because Angel's Envy will be considered a legacy brand, right? It's Kentucky. It's right smack down. You start Main Street. That's the first thing you see. Beautiful, beautiful building. A long family heritage. So it takes somebody with big cojones to walk in there and say, I can actually do something different. But he also credit to the distillery that said, we are
Absolutely.
going to bring new blood in to actually do something different. I would personally say till about a year ago, I made a statement. I was on a panel, I made a statement. I say some brands are so comfortable they becoming boring, right? Even though those brands have been doing so great in life, when we expect the same release every year, the same thing that's coming out, and nothing really comes as innovation, you become boring on the market. And I hate to see it for brands that I really like. So when I saw you come in the business, I'm like, okay, there's a new sheriff in town. What's gonna happen? And let's talk about, I want to set the stage for what I called the old faithful to expect from Angels Envy. First thing most people will expect from Angels Envy, obviously, is their bourbon, right? Their bourbon, special bourbon, obviously. But one of the things people don't know is that Angels Envy always had a finish,
Mhm.
always had a finish. So if you look on it, it's going to be bourbon finished in pork barrels. That- That's what you have. You have the rye also that is finished, but I don't have it because that's kind of my favorite rye to do everything with. So I ran out. Then once a year, you end up having the bourbon finished in pork barrel at cask-strength. That is their annual release that they have. Now, those are the standards. But we're talking about Owen Martin here. So Owen walks in and he goes, great. I'm here. It's 2023. I want to see something different. So let's talk about your mindset as you walked in, as far as the first release that came out of 20 at the end of 2023. There
Yeah,
was
yeah.
two major releases that came out
Yep.
during that time. So tell me a little bit about those releases and your mindset as you walked in. And we can maybe, if you have those, taste through those releases, because like I said, I've been hanging on to these, even though I've had some samples, I'm hanging
Yeah.
on to these releases till you and I get to sit online and kind of talk about those and that, because two new releases came immediately. We're not going to talk about the special release because that was so special. No one, I didn't think I even saw it come through of the booklet one.
Yeah, yeah. Next time you come through, we'll get you some.
Absolutely,
You know, you're in a
absolutely,
distiller's office when I'm trying to root through bottles under my desk to
correct,
find
correct.
which one you tasted. No, I love that. That's a fantastic question, Jack. So I guess that probably touches on a larger idea of what my mindset and goal was stepping into, like you said, a legacy brand. I mean, to me, one of the coolest things about Angels Envy is that I don't think you're wrong with calling it a legacy brand, but when we think about those type of brands, we're talking about like Jim Beam, Heaven Hill, things that have been around for decades and decades, if not hundreds of years. Um, and to me, Angels Envy's only been around for about 13, 14 years, right? So
Mhm,
like, to
mhm.
me, the brand identity and the brand presence really outpaces even the actual history of the brand,
Correct.
which is really cool, right? Like, iconic bottle, obviously one of the first in the game with finishing. But really, on the flip side of that, these brands that have been around for so long can really lean into the heritage piece of that, and that's great for them. But for me, what's cool is that because we really haven't been around for all that long, I'm not constrained by tradition, right? I can move things in different directions. I can apply new techniques, new casks that some of which didn't even exist, when a lot of these original other bourbon distilleries started up. Um, but I guess to answer your question more specifically, the goal coming in the door was, and I know you already teed it up saying like he changed everything, all this jazz. Great in some respect. When it comes to innovation, yeah, all about changing it up, finding new things to do. But really, the other goal, right, is that for our core products, our bourbon and port and our rye and rum, to not rock the boat too much with those, right? Because we've built a
Correct.
brand presence, we've built brand loyalty, and the last thing I
Mhm.
want to do is be the new guy through the door that alienates all the fans that have been around since day one. So on one sense, right, as we grow as a brand, as we get bigger and make more bourbon, make more rye, the
Mhm.
goal is to hold those releases as consistent as possible as we become
Mhm.
a bigger and bigger brand. That's goal one. Goal
Correct.
two is probably the more fun one because I get to speak about innovation. I get to speak about all the crazy stuff we're trying out. And those first releases you're talking about at the end of 2023 kind of hit both of those, because I knew from day one when I walked in, it was going to be the 12th release of the Kentucky Straight Bourbon finished in port wine barrels cask strength. Like, that's been around since the earliest days, right? That was our year in, year out special release.
Correct.
One of the things I've said since I got here is that if I'm innovating on any release, and certainly the one we're going to talk about a little bit later, if I'm innovating correctly, it should feel like a natural extension, right? Like something that surprises a fan, but also at the same time, you're like, like that makes sense. Or, oh, that could have existed. Or, you know, I'm still surprised, but this feels like a natural extension of Angelsenvy. And so the 12th, I mean, obviously I kind of applied some of my own techniques to the bourbon, and we can get into those. But in a sense, the reason we did that double release was that I wanted to have something surprising out around a year into being here. And I was like, well, what's more surprising than doing a double release? You know, we know we're going to do the 12th release of this bourbon, but what if we surprise people with the first time we've ever done a cask strength rye?
And one of the things that happened is the design of the bottle came with you at the same time, right?
Absolutely. And I can't take full credit for that. That was already in the works. Actually, I can't really take any credit for that. That was in the works before I got in the door. But I think anyone who's seen this bottle in person, like it's stunning. And I know you only got the sample ones, but you've seen the bottle.
It's a beautiful, stunning looking bottle.
Yeah.
New
heavy,
design coming.
Got the embossed wings and everything. So it turned out really nice. And I think it looks even better when you got both bottles right next to each other. Mine are empty because, you know, I'm not sitting on them, but
you've been studying.
Yes, I've been studying. That's a great way to put it.
So this is the other one. As you can see, same design, but more on the green side. So I have a few of those to show. So this is the new 2023 cask strength coming in. This one came in at 115.2.
118 for the bourbon, 0.2.
Yeah, 100. You see, I have my glasses on, still can't see. 118.2 at 59.1% ABV. First time actually trying it outside of the distillery, by the way.
Gotcha. So with this one,
what did you do differently as this release come? Because I saw the announcement today about 2024.
Yeah.
So what did you do different on this one? What you just walked in, this was ready to go. Did you twist anything? Did you change anything? Did you change any method at all?
Yes. All of the above. But I mean, I think I was empowered to do that, right? Like, as opposed to the day in, day out release where I'm trying to keep that consistent. The cool thing about a cask strength program or a single barrel program for that matter is that you're really highlighting different strengths, right? So like, maybe one year we get some incredible bourbon barrels that we really want to showcase, so we put those into a lighter port barrel. Or maybe some year we get this incredible Solera port barrels that have held wine for decades, and we really want to showcase those. So it's about putting that in the front seat. And so whereas for our standard product, it's about consistency day over day, week over week, month over month, year over year. Cask strength can kind of swing for the fences any given year. And the one thing I felt strongly about for this first year was that I wanted to put some of the earliest Angelsenvy distilled in there. And so our distillery's been online since the fall of 2016. And so that was maybe the main piece, I would say, of this year's one that we then built it around. There was 3 pieces to it. It had 9-year-old bourbon that was actually 2 years in port barrels. But those port barrels were multi-fill, if you know what I mean. So like, bourbon by law has to be a brand new char barrel for the initial maturation. But when we start talking about finishing barrels, we can treat those more like a Scotch or Irish whiskey producer would, and fill them multiple times if we choose to. So that 9-year-old had a really nice oak forward bourbon character with a light amount of port to it. And I want to make sure the other 2 components were a lot more port heavy. So I took a bunch of my single barrel team was very gracious to me because I cherry picked my favorite single barrels out of the program as the year went on. I replaced them with other good ones, but I took the ones I felt most strongly about. And so those were 2018 Angelsenvy with about 6 months finish time. And then the third part was 2016 Angelsenvy that had, I think by the end of it, about 9 months finishing time. And so you kind of, all 3 of those components, obviously different ages of bourbon, different finishes, different fill times of the port barrel. And so one thing that I like to do, which takes more of a nod to the Scotch industry, is extended marrying time, right? So think Balvenie like ton series. And I say that because like obviously we love to talk about finishing, right? You come in the distillery, you're going to see it on almost every wall of the distillery, which will make that thing we're going
Correct.
to talk about at the end even more fun to talk about. But when we talk about finishing, to me, it's all part of a bigger holistic idea with marrying, blending, and all this process. And maybe finishing is the tip of that iceberg that sticks out of the water, but all these other things are going on behind the scenes. So when we
Correct.
picked out these three types of bourbon that we liked, what we did was we married them in May of last year and let them marry all the way for about 3 to 4 months until it was time to bottle them. And
Nice.
I swear, I've been trying to think of a good analogy this whole time, and I keep coming back to this one. It's not the most premium analogy out there, but when I think about marrying whiskeys, I think about it like making a chili, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're putting that chili together, it's always better on day 2 or day 3, whatever, next week,
Correct.
whatever.
Correct.
Marrying's the same way to me because especially when I'm talking about all these different components, like the goal when you taste this type of whiskey isn't that you're like, oh, I can taste that 2016 at the beginning and then it fades into the 9-year-old and wow, you get a little bit of that pepperiness from the younger 2018. No, I don't want that experience to happen. I want it to be, I taste 2023 Angel's Envy, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I created this cohesive release where all those components are kind of in harmony with each other. And I think marrying does a really good job at doing that because it gives them time to just integrate and flavor over the course of months. So with the rye cask strength that I think you'll pour next, that
I'm
was a
pouring
smaller
that
batch. That was about 22 to 25 barrels. I can't quite remember.
114.4.
Yep. So a little lower proof as well. But we were really happy with how that one came together. So we didn't want the flavor profile to change too much. So what we did was we married it for that same amount of time, but we married it into stainless steel totes where we weren't going to introduce any more barrel character. There wasn't going to be a whole lot of oxidation, but it could still get marrying time.
But I see a new barrel appear
Yeah.
here.
Oh yeah. So wait, give me 2 seconds. I will tell you all about that. But to finish up on the bourbon, it was 100-barrel batch or a little bit under that, and so we didn't have the totes to put that into. But what we liked is that we could continue to kind of let that develop. So what we did was we married the 100 barrels together, and then we put it right back into all the barrels it came out of, and it married in those barrels through the whole summer. And they actually all changed again over the summer and oxidized and got a little bit more oak, a little bit more wine. So that by the time we had dumped those barrels in September, like this huge, like fudgy mouth coating mouthfeel to it, right? And like a really cool depth of flavor there from all those different components. But I'll go back to the rye for you. So the idea behind this one, obviously, like I said, I wanted something familiar to our consumers, but surprising to them, to do something new for us for the first time. But even before that, like one of the first things I did when I got to the distillery was taste through all the specialty barrels that were down. That could be finished barrels, that could be unfinished bourbon, just anything we had, and really to kind of get a handle on what our inventories were, what projects I had to work with, and what projects I could continue to lay down. And I tasted these different small lots of rye that had been put down. 10 barrels of Sauterne finished rye, 10 barrels of French oak toasted barrel rye, 10 barrels of American oak toasted barrel rye. And, those were little like tester batches, not really enough to do a special release, but I started blending them together, right? Because, again, a lot of what I was doing in Colorado was experimenting with different finishes and even playing those finishes off each other in some special releases, that whole layering effect. And I found that the Sauterne and the French oak especially played really well together with this release. So even though obviously our day-to-day rye release is rum finished, we were going to do something a little bit different than that even and do a blend of different finishes, none of which were rum. And so this ended up being a blend of Sauterne and toasted oak was kind of what we decided for the final release. But under that toasted oak, we had some French oak and some American oak as well to even, further differentiate the flavor. But this one, I think the goal there, you get this wonderful like tartness from the Sauterne, that honey, like apricot. One of our favorite tasting notes was like pears dipped in honey, I guess. And then it's rounded out with that beautiful spice profile from the French oak that kind of integrates the spicier rye in as well. I really like French and rye, how those interplay with each other, because you get peppery rye with like that cinnamon baking spice French oak. And then on top of that, you have the Sauterne just giving you a wonderful pop of fruit and acidity. So yeah, turned out really, really nice. If anything, I just wish we could have done a bigger batch of it even.
I'm telling you, I actually, I forgot how good this tastes. I mean, the nose on this thing is ridiculous. Is really one of those nose that make you. I've been nosing it the whole time you're talking, and
You saying I talk too long, man?
no, no, no. It's just you know what? The question I have after tasting these two cask-strength is how are you able to round up? Obviously, you take care of the blending.
Yep.
So how are you able to round up your style of blending to get those that beautiful? It's almost like the whiskey, even though it is cask-strength, caresses the back of your palate. It's like the only word I can use is caress
I
because
love it. No, I
it's
love it.
not even a touch. It's more of a caress of your palate in the back because it's round up perfectly. It's like taking the perfect sip because you get the notes that are meant to be, but that back end, either on the bourbon or on the rye, there's this perfect caress that goes back, that creates a little softness as it goes down. That doesn't make you go, "Ooh, this is gas trend." You don't get that.
Yeah. Well,
What's your secret?
yeah, I mean, I try to be completely transparent with what I'm doing on my releases, but I truly attribute that to that rounding out to the marrying and to really dialing our blend in. So, when we blend, like I said, for May, we get these components together, and we just blended this year's cask strength last week, so it's good timing, and that's not going to be bottled till the fall, so we gave it plenty of time. But what we do, right, is as long as no one's screenshotting this is my blending book. So
So what you're saying is there is a method to this madness.
there's
This
a
this
method to
didn't
it.
happen as a fluke. This is the Owen Martin way of blend.
Yeah, you got to have a little black book that's soaked in whiskey too. But no, I'll tell you straight up. So my methodology, no matter what the release is first you got to get what's the size of the batch, right? I don't want my brand team to do a whole bunch of work marketing something. I don't want my packaging team to develop a beautiful bottle and then I tell them, oh wait, there's only 5 barrels of this and it's going to sell out in 2 seconds and no one gets to get it. Like the goal there is to make a large enough release that anyone who wants it can hopefully get it. Obviously, depending on the release, that's not always the case, but say they give me a case count. So we're going to say it's however many bottles. So 12,000 bottles. I work that back to cases, which then works it back to how many barrels I need total.
Mhm.
So let's take last year's cask-strength bourbon, for example, 100 barrels. So how I said we had 3 components, 9-year-old and then 2018 and then 2016. So it starts before we even start trying to match flavors there or anything. I'm going to look at 100 barrels. And I do literally my very first step, I always call it blend by numbers. It has no flavor basis whatsoever. So I say, I need 100 barrels to get this release done. I have 40 barrels of 2016 Angel's Envy. I have 30 barrels of 2018 Angel's Envy and 30 barrels of 9-year-old. I'll mock that up. Let's see. I'll mock that up with a graduated cylinder like here, and I'll do like a milliliter per barrel, right? 100 milliliters, 100 barrels. And I'll just go 40, 30, 30. Right? And so literally just seeing what even barrels I have accessible.
Yeah.
And there's no flavor there. No flavor basis. And then I just mix it up. And when I taste it, inevitably, you never nail it off the first one, especially when you're not actually tasting it. So
Correct.
I taste that first one. I'm like, oh, man, that is way too oak forward. Or, oh, man, that is way too sweet. But luckily, knowing what each of those components bring into the fold, then I can start dialing up and down and up and down. And so I'm like, well, let's make this more 2018 centric. I want more port and a little more cereal grains. Or I want to dial back the 9-year-old a little bit. So then I just start iterating it. So first V1 is always blend by numbers. V2 is when I start playing with it. For what we just blended last week, 15 blend iterations till we got to the ratios we liked.
Wow.
Right? So 15 iterations. And by that, I mean, I'm talking about 5% less this, 6% more this, right? Like a little bit. And I'll taste my whole quality team on that. I usually try to run up to the bar and taste them on that. Really, anyone who wants to be involved with Angel's Envy, the more feedback I get palate-wise, the better. Jack, having been here, that I'll even pull a sample out. So
that is the rumor around the distillery that don't be surprised if you get sneak attacked by Owen to say, try this. I can't tell you what it is, but you try this and see what it is because you are never shy to actually take on criticism by
no, I want it.
anyone.
It's and as fun as that is for you guys when you come in through the distillery, that's active feedback for me. So it's a two-way street. It's useful. Um, but so say then, with your feedback, with the bar's feedback, with my quality team's feedback, we finally dial that into a place we're really happy with. That's exactly what this is for this year's.
Ooh.
Then we marry that, right? So that's going to inevitably change and hopefully develop and become, have an even better depth of flavor as we go through the summer. But we're tasting it every few weeks through the summer, right? So by the time we get to our final packaging day, which, say mid-September, we already know how it's changed in the summer. So not only has it developed that beautiful caressing mouthfeel that you said, which I love, because truly I think I'm always going for that silky, like coating mouthfeel.
Correct.
But even in September, if it's changed through the summer and it's got more oak on it, then we'll dial in and probably add a few percentages of a more wine heavy barrel, or maybe just a softer barrel, a low proof barrel overall, right? So we basically, any of my special releases, I always say get blended twice over. We blend, then we marry, then we blend again, and that's the final release. And I think, it's, again, coming with more of a Scotch mindset, I'm generally not the guy who's chasing 120, 130, 140 proof stuff. Like I again come from more of a Scotch background where proof is less important. It's more about age and provenance, right? So I like blending stuff in that like 100 to 115 mark is usually my go-to. 120 is what I usually cap it out at. And yeah, so, I kind of overall have the mindset like, you can have a really nice bottle of wine or a really nice bottle of beer and pour it for somebody who's never drank a lot of wine or beer, and they can still understand that it's a good product. But with the bourbon industry, we've gotten so crazy about chasing proof and like dialing that for the nerdiest consumers that I think about like a cask-strength and like pouring that for my parents at Christmas or something. If I pour my mom something that's 120 proof, she's gonna light the room on fire. So like, whether it's 118 proof or like the 100 proof stuff we'll talk about in a little bit, my goal is to always make something that drinks under the proof of what's on that label. I want it to be silky to, coat your palate, and ultimately to be as accessible as it can be. And, I think the releases I'm most proud of are the releases that can make the whiskey super, super whiskey nerd incredibly happy, but I can also pour for anyone, novice, through nerd, and that they find, something that they find accessible and something that like is a mark of quality to them.
I tell you what, like you heard it here first, guys. There's a method to his madness. So anything you taste out of Angel's Envy now, I'm just gonna tell you right now, it's okay to ask questions. I, I
Yeah,
personally,
please.
you guys may not know this, but I personally put Owen to the test the first time I met him. Being someone who studied in Scotland, obviously because single malt culture, he was in Colorado, one of the fastest growing state. Then he comes into bourbon. I put him to the test. I said, I don't know about this, and I heard his answer, and I don't know about that. And the craziest thing is, I respect him personally, not only as a person, but for what he does because he always have a reason. He always have a method, and that you have to appreciate because how many people can pull out something out of a release and turn around and tell you, I did this because of XYZ. You don't hear it often. And here on the Hood Sommelier channel, we are about transparency and understanding the madness behind. That's why I call this episode the case of Owen Martin. Remember this name because I guarantee you there's so many more things. Again, remember like I posted something before me trying to explain things to folks, and there's like this whole conspiracy theory or then that's how I feel like Owen thinks because he's always thinking of ways to improve change. And we love that in the whiskey industry. But meanwhile, the flavor notes are so perfect and balanced that you he, he's a force to be reckoned with. And that is shown in him bringing again. I mean, the gall, the the audacity of what you brought in on the market. So I'm minding my own business, and next thing I know, I get an email, and the email say we are happy to announce that Angels Envy is releasing a pioneer edition exclusive cask-strength bottle and bond. What the heck, Owen? Explain yourself.
Did you double take at that one?
I literally did it. I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
What is happening? So you come into a distillery that always done it finish, a distillery that never had a bottling bond, and you say, you know what? Hold my beer. Not only I'm gonna put out something that is not finished in port wine or whatnot, I'm also gonna make it bottle and bond. Explain yourself, sir.
Yes,
We
sir.
we need we need explanation. Explain
As
yourself.
as you wish. Well, first of all, I mean, we just started talking about this in the last week or so. I always want to give credit where it's due, and this was, as was relayed to me, this was actually an idea of our founder, Lincoln Henderson,
Good
who
old Lincoln Henderson.
whose name is on the damn bottle.
Right here.
Um,
Right
so
here.
so I don't want to take credit for it. I think if anything, my contributions to this were blending in the whole big deal we just talked about there, and barrel selection. But probably my biggest push for this was, at least as he had ideated it, was that this would probably actually be under like a Louisville Distilling Company label, right? So that's our business name. Angels Envy is the brand. And my big push was that this is absolutely an Angels Envy release, and I thought it would, send some waves through the industry.
It did, and it's still doing it because normally if you and I were here only at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, my engagement, no one usually is here watching. But I see a lot of people on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, just lurking in to go. They want to know about this release. They want to know what is happening. What is happening right now? So I'm hiding everybody's Facebook. But there's a lot of things that happened with this release that I have so many questions about. First of all, what is it with this 375 bottle? That's one. That's one. Second, Castrin. Third, bottle and bond. And I don't think I've ever tasted Angel's Envy without a finish. So
Well,
many. My mind is like going through so many things right now. So I want to hear it all. I want to hear it all. So this is
I think
Lincoln
the
idea.
funniest thing. So the first question you ask is, why is it in a 375, and you don't ask about all the other crazy shit on there. But oh no, you teed it up really nicely actually. So it's a 375 because it is. So there's two things here. It's our first time we've ever done a distillery exclusive, and then the bigger news there, it's the first time we've ever done an unfinished bourbon. But it's a 375 because we knew we had, I think it ended up being 29 barrels, and oh hey Nate,
Hey Nate,
we
Colorado in the house representing for for
yeah.
for, for you.
So we had 29 barrels. We knew that would make a certain amount of volume, right? And we knew it was going to be special. So if we were going to do something that was only available at the distillery, we wanted to stretch that out a little bit, and so we could double the bottle volume or double the bottle count by having the volume.
Yes.
So we wanted to if we were going to do it, we wanted to make sure there's 12,000 bottles. If we would have done 750s, there would have been only 6,000. So wanted to make a decent amount and then make something. This ended up being like $55, which I think is a pretty good deal.
It's a really good deal.
So only available at the distillery starting this Friday. But let's get into the details here. So
I want to hear it all. I want to hear it
yeah,
all. I have so many questions. I want to hear it all.
yeah. So I mean, the coolest thing here, like I said, an idea of our founders that is a direct line to the beginning that we get to execute now. But to all our earlier discussion on blending, this one I think is so cool because it gives me like so many more tools to talk about blending with and like educate, let alone even our tour guides and people to educate about finishing. Because we're going to continue to be a finished whiskey brand, but having this that we can pour at the distillery, I think only gives us more sensory that they can pour this, then pour our, flagship port finish and actually have them side by side. But we'll say, so this is I guess let's dive into the barrels themselves. So
Yeah, I want to hear it all.
yeah,
What? Tell us. Was Angel Navy just holding on to these barrels till they finish it? What was the idea behind this whole thing here? I want to hear it all.
yeah. So in spring of 2018, they laid down, I think, one fermenter's worth of barrels. So same grain bill, same fermentation, same distillation. The one change there was that we used a historic barrel entry proof as opposed to, we're right under 125 right now. But for this group of barrels, we did all the way down at 103. And I'm sure you've heard, like Michter's Wild Turkey. There's some brands that use lower entry proof, and there's some reasons behind that.
Right.
We'll talk about it in a little bit. But this is a combination, a historic entry proof, and then understanding how barrels mature, how angel share works, right? We're going to lose a certain amount out of the barrels, but
Correct.
Depending on the environment that you age those barrels in, you lose water and alcohol at slightly different rates, right? So functionally, when you have a barrel in the very top of a rick house, or a barrel, over with Nate in Colorado, you have a
Correct.
hot, dry environment. And so you actually lose slightly more water than you do alcohol out of the barrel, because that water is getting pulled out to try to equalize with the environment around it. And so functionally, a barrel in Colorado or a barrel at the top of our rick house is going to go up in proof. The opposite is true in Scotland, or in the bottom of a rick house or like palletized warehouse. If you have a very humid environment, you already have water kind of all around the environment of that barrel. So alcohol more readily leaves the barrel. And again, you lose both, but in Scotland or in the bottom of a rick house, you tend to go down in proof, right? And so that's what we did. We put these 103 proof barrels in a cool, humid part of the warehouse where we knew they were going to continue to go down in proof. And they ended up, so let me back up a second. When this label got leaked, and you mentioned seeing a label today, so I know where you're getting your news, Jack. But when this label got leaked, there was a bunch of speculation of how it was done. And people thought we were like sitting there proofing the barrels every single day till they hit 100. And that wasn't right. I didn't correct them at the time. I was waiting until we actually formally announced it. But I didn't like that, because honestly, that's not a flavor-driven decision. If you're pulling it right at 100, you're probably not pulling it right when that barrel tastes the best.
Correct.
But more realistically, honestly, that probably would have had to been done before I even got in the door. So by the time, like I said, when we were talking about the other cask-strengths, I was tasting through all the lots of barrels, all the finishing barrels, all the bourbon, all the rye. And by the time I got to these and pulled my first proof, they were down at like 98, 99 proof. So not 100, couldn't be called bottle and bond. But we knew we wanted to do a bottle and bond. We knew if we were going to do this and do an unfinished, we wanted to be as historic as possible, right? So what's more historic than bottle and bond? So one distillery, one distilling season, bonded warehouse, no color or flavor additives, minimum 4 years, and the big one, 100 proof. But what's one of those bottle and bond regulations? One distilling season, right? Yep. So even though we ended up going with 27 barrels that were at 98 to 99 proof, you still have same barrels from that same distilling season that are at normal entry proof.
Correct.
And so we took 27 low proof barrels, 2 high proof barrels at about 122 proof, and we bang on hit 100 on the damn dot.
That's why. Sorry to interrupt you, but I was about this 100. I'm like, how did they get to that 100 proof exactly? I was like, there got to be something that was done, or Owen is the luckiest son of a bitch I've ever met in my life.
I mean, I am that, so I'll take it. But I'm gonna get you a real behind the scenes thing for. I don't even know if this is gonna work, but
okay, let's see it. Okay, all right, yeah, we can see it. No.
So do you see 100.000?
I do see it. I do see it.
So I've only seen that like 2 or 3 times in my entire career. Normally, legally, right, we can go 0.6 on either side of a proof.
Correct.
And within a certain, our in-house specs are even tighter than that. But this is what's called a DMA, or an Anton Par. It's what the government encourages you. They cost like $20,000. They encourage you to use that to pay your taxes to make sure your proofs are right.
Correct.
But I've only seen 000s 3 times in my entire career. And for this release of anyone to be 100.000, we didn't add a drop of damn water to it. It was like we had processing guys running around the distillery just freaking out. It was pretty cool.
You
But
know what?
let me back up real quick.
I'm pouring the whiskey because
Yeah,
at
do
this
it.
point I really want to try the whiskey because we've talked a lot about the whiskey. I want to know what
Well,
is happening with the
let me
whiskey.
back up and give you just kind of give you the idea behind how we pitched it. So I mentioned that I thought this release was indeed Angel's Envy, even though it wasn't finished. And the idea behind that was, again, you come in here, you see finishing every wall. It's what we educate people on day to day. But to me, again, coming from Scotch world, like finishing something that's been done for a decent amount of time there, right? At the time when Angel's Envy was founded, it wasn't done really in bourbon at all. And certainly a brand hadn't fully hung their hat on being a finished whiskey brand.
Mm-hmm.
But shit, you go to Total Wine now and there's 100 finished bourbons on the wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I kind of like was trying to reframe the conversation, I guess I would say, so let's not look at finishing individually, but let's look at finishing as an idea. And it's an idea that has more commonly been seen in Scotch and Irish whiskey when you look historically, right? So like wine barrels have been used in Ireland for hundreds of years. Finishing, I think, is probably 50 years old now. I think Balvenie, maybe not quite 40 years. Balvenie Doublewood being one of the first ones, right? I think that's usually credited with it.
Mm-hmm.
So if Angel's Envy did one thing, it was apply an idea from Scotch and Irish whiskey to American whiskey and to bourbon, a historic industry, in the first like big meaningful way, right? Mm-hmm. So in that way, it was like the idea that we're blending traditions or we're marrying something from one industry into another, right? Does that make sense? So my pitch with this product was like, well, let's look within bourbon. Let's look at bourbon as a category itself. You got 1897 bottle and bond on one end, as historic as it gets. Then you got cask-strength, right? Not necessarily new, like Blanton's and onwards. It's been around for a minute, but I would say cask-strength is probably as popular as it's ever been right now. And so it's the idea of taking not between two industries like we did 13 years ago, but within the industry, taking two ideas that had never been combined before and combining them. And when I kind of reframed it that way, I was like, what's more Angel's Envy than innovatively combining ideas in a way that surprises people?
Taking something that people are definitely not used to.
Yeah, not used to, but back to our earlier conversation, something that's familiar, right? You know both of those things. You've just never seen them together before.
Correct.
And then it even goes to another point where I said, I'm typically not looking at 120 proof up. And for all the blending stuff we do and all the attributes that we talked about, that silky mouthfeel and everything that comes along with blending and marrying, I thought it would be so cool to deliver a cask-strength experience to someone that maybe doesn't like high proof bourbon, right? Somebody I can say like, literally, This is straight out of the barrel. No, we added no water to this. But you get this at cask-strength, but it's not going to burn the hell out of your palate. You still get that silky mouthfeel, that way that it drinks under proof, but in a, I guess, a more accessible experience, if I'm being honest. So
I mean, you can tell by the spice note on the nose that there's something different about this.
Mm-hmm. And I get it in the mouthfeel. Again, the same common attributes that you said you saw in both the cask-strength bourbon and the cask-strength rye. It feels the same way on my palate. Obviously, the burn's less because the proof's significantly lower, but I still get that like rounded experience that comes out of it, that chewiness, So,
dude, you want my honest opinion?
Yeah, please.
This drink's way too easy.
I know, it's like 90 proof.
No, I'm telling you, I'm very honest. This drink's way too freaking easy. Like, I'm talking, we're going to start a conversation. By the time we're done with the conversation, it's like, if this 375 just ended at the end of this drink's way too easy, but it has body. It has personality. It has punch of flavor, but it drinks way too freaking easy, dude. Like, I don't think there's a lot of bourbon that can claim that they drink way too easy, but this First, this takes as Kentucky as it comes. Butterscotch,
Mm-hmm.
bacon spice, nice, cinnamon coming through. But when I tell you this tastes way too easy, like it's it's as dangerous as a bourbon can be,
Absolutely.
which actually make me want to say, I'll be honest, screw Angel's Envy. You guys haven't given us the juice itself in a long time because I
Hey,
feel like we've been missing out on
better late than never,
something.
man. Come on.
Obviously, it takes amazing whiskey to be able to have an amazing finish, but if you try this, right, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah, it's special, man.
It's
And
like finding out this whole time your crush likes you. You know what I'm saying? Like
oh,
that's the best feeling. It's like find out this whole time you had a crush on somebody and you thought they never liked you, and find out like this whole time they had a crush on you.
I'm gonna steal that line from you. I like that. But let me take it back. So that I think a lot of the stuff you're talking about is due to that lower entry proof, right? In the cool environment that it aged in. Like I think it's neat. It's a nerdy detail that we hit 100 on the dot, but like ultimately we want the flavor to express itself. And like let me, in complete honesty, I like a higher entry proof for our standard product because going back to the analogy with the angel share and water and alcohol evaporating at different rates. Well, water and alcohol are both also pulling different compounds out of your wood. They're solubilizing different compounds. And so a high entry proof in general, a higher alcohol content tends to pull out more of the tannin, more of the oak, more of that dark color, right? And when we're going to put our standard stuff into wine barrels, that's great. I actually want to pull out more oak because I know I'm going to soften that with a port barrel, right? I'm gonna soften the edges with a little bit more sweetness, a little bit more fruitiness. But knowing that this is unfinished, 103 proof's like lovely because lower entry proof, so more water, usually tends to pull out more of the sweeter compounds, creates more of a fuller experience, and solubilizes some of those tannins that otherwise would be hitting you in your palate. So the oak profile on this is really
Jesus.
soft actually.
If you hear and if you've tried this release, I want to hear what y'all have to say because oh my god, I feel biased. That's
Well,
really how
it
I
comes
feel.
out on Friday, so unless
I really, really much so feel biased because good God.
yeah, it's cool. And honestly, it's not a hugely old bourbon. This is the low proof barrels were 5 years, 10 months. The two high proof barrels were a little bit younger, 5 years, 8 months. And like you said, I mean, I think it drinks under proof. It drinks older than that. So like all these cool things kind of wrapped into one. But it makes me think, we have a few more of these barrels. Right now, the intention is that this is probably a one and done, but we'll see what happens because this isn't even 6 years old. Imagine what this thing would taste like at 10 years old or 15 years old or what. Like, because the oak profile on this is so soft. Like, hey, I don't have to tell you, we've all spent a bunch of money on a 15 or 20-year-old bourbon, and it just tastes like we put sawdust in our mouth. With how soft this is, how like light fruit sweet it is, I think this thing can go 10 years easy, 15 years easy. And again, with more of a nod to kind of like a Scotch, nice slow maturation, uh, some really cool things to come.
Guys, pay attention to this bottle. I'm gonna tell y'all right now. Your dad called and he said he doesn't want any socks for Father's Day. All he wants is this $59.99 bottle of
55 even 55.
55. So 54.99
There you go.
dollar bottle is all
You
he's
got it.
asking for you to go. So here's what I'm gonna tell you. Call your friends in Kentucky, call your mama, your baby mama, their baby mamas that lives anywhere in Louisville, and tell them, hey, I don't care what you want to give me for Christmas, but all I know is all I want for Christmas this year in the middle of Christmas in July or June, make
Sure.
sure you actually get me uh this bottle of Angel's Envy. It's gonna be distillery only,
Yes,
right?
sir. Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be distillery only. I'm just telling you right now. If you're planning at any time in the next week and a half to actually it's hot in Louisville right now. So hopefully not a lot of people stand in that long line. Come on the crack it down. Stand up. This is worth you standing in line for at least an hour or two. I promise you. The, let's talk about Angels Envy.
Yeah. Hey, and I'll come hang out on Friday. I'll be
And,
there.
and that's what I'm telling you. Maybe you'll be lucky because I'm sad Owen didn't sign mine because this is one of a kind. I wanted you to sign mine,
Yeah,
but
bring it back. Bring it
I
back.
will. I will tell you right now. Friday, tell your boss you ain't coming to work. You taking the day off. Stop by, grab yourself a bottle of this. Trust me. Trust me. I've always said when you taste good Kentucky bourbon, you know it. Like there's no one should tell you this is good Kentucky bourbon. But this right here, solid, solid 100% time. I was a little nervous. I'm gonna tell you, and I was a
That's all
little
right. Hey,
nervous
I get it.
because new things that come. I don't know. If you're nervous like me, put an F in the chat. Put an F in the chat. When you saw that, you were like, I don't know. Like I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I was a little nervous. I'm like, I don't know if Angels Envy can pull something out that is unfinished, that is bottle and bun, that's also caster, and that will knock my socks off. And well,
Check. Check that
well,
box.
I don't think I don't I I don't know expectation wise. I don't know what people will expect from this, but guys, 54.99. Get in line, adjust yourself, bring a comfortable chair, socks, whatever. But your dad called and he said he doesn't want anything. All he wants is this bottle for Father's Day. So Father's Day is next week. Make sure you prepare yourself, get yourself ready, and offer your loved one, your bourbon loving people in your life, one of a kind bottle. I'm gonna cherish this bottle for quite some time. And if I get to the distillery and there's still some, I'm getting myself one. This is a piece of history. This is well done. Well done.
Yeah.
Angels and
We
me.
we don't really know. I mean, we got 12,000 bottles. We don't know if that's going to last 3 months or two
I,
months, or we have no
I
idea.
don't know. You are going way too far out. I don't think it's gonna. You got which I need to know for people that do not know. Friday, people are gonna show up at the distillery. What are their expectation? Is it gonna be one per person? Is it gonna be two per person, or as many as you can buy?
I think we're no, no, no. I think we're shooting from the hip, man. I think it's going to be a case or something like that. So 12, I think 12 bottles. If
Woo!
anybody's coming in big, but like again, like the goal here is that we're going to learn as well. This is the first time we've only launched something to the distillery. If this
Correct.
sells out like that, guess what? That gives me some data to argue I should do a second run with it.
Correct.
So the faster it goes, the more likely we got another one coming. But anyway, we'll know a lot more in a month from now, I guess.
I and you hear it. You know, this is gonna be one of those sad days where you gonna turn around, and for the first time, OM name may appear in the word we never use called secondary, because I'm sure there's somebody sitting in the corner saying, I'm gonna give me 10 cases of this because holy crap. Again, I was nervous. I was truly nervous. I did not know what to expect. Um, you got some fan here on Instagram saying they're a big fan of yours. This release is incredible. A lot of people actually agree with me on the sentiment that this release is incredible. And I will tell y'all right now, um, Owen is a young father. Yeah, his kid is still our the kids are still young, so do him a favor, right? Do him a favor, and let's buy out this release for Father's Day. So he knows that's his gift for Father's Day. Is there's
Sure.
none left. But two things you have to keep in mind. He's gonna come and hang out and see y'all there. He's the most simplistic man you've ever met. But second, Angels Envy itself has been built as a new customer experience for you. So schedule yourself uh, a visit, grab yourself a bottle or two or three or a case, and visit around. Look at the state of the art. It will make sense of why they're the whiskey that they're making actually is the way it is. But I will tell you right now, when My socks are not, excuse my French, the fuck out. I officially now can say with certitude that this release is Hood Sommelier approved. This release is amazing. Congratulations, brother. This right here. And for all of you guys who don't know what it looks like, I'm showing you one more time. This is what the bottle looks like. Don't worry, when I got them. It
Okay.
looks this big. This and it's coming 375. Don't you walk in that distillery and say, "Oh, I didn't know it come in a small bottle." Relax. This is what it comes as. This is what it looks like. You cannot mistake it. Is this beautiful? Now on the two last questions before I let you go. Question number
Sure.
one. Question number one. What can the people expect in the next? You come here and just coming jumping in the sandbox, creating a new castle, using new ways to actually bring this out, digging out things that were in. What should the people expect out of Angel's Envy
Sure.
at
Well,
till the end of at least till the end of 2024. I'm not going to ask you about future projects because I'm sure there's a few on embargo, but I want to know what is happening with new project coming in. What
yeah.
should we expect? We know you out here doing some crazy stuff. What else can we expect? There was an announcement today, so I will let you. I'm not going to take that away from you. I will let you talk about that. But what can we expect? What do we what do we have?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I said it right at the beginning. This is just getting started. So, like, the rye cask-strength was, I wanted to get something surprising out with my first year with the company. But most of the work I was doing last year is just starting to come out now, this being the first one of them. So, I guess my hint would be, if this is releasing and it's only at the distillery, we're playing with releases of all different scales, going all over the places. So, like, stay tuned. This one's the distillery one. You're going to see another couple that are going to do a couple different things, different sizes. Um, I guess different levels of rarity, for lack of a better phrase. But
Sir, this is where we get the scoop. I don't. Why you so vague? This is the vaguest I've ever. It is so vague. I'm actually worried how vague this is.
fine,
What
you're not going to
what
have to
should we
wait too long.
expect? Mhm.
You're going to see some things out this fall that I think, to back up things that you will come out under Angel's Envy that you're like, oh, I didn't even realize they didn't have one. Like, that makes total sense. Like,
Okay.
when I say that, we've got a wine finished bourbon, we got a spirits finished rye, right? So, like,
Mhm.
where are the areas that we haven't played in yet? And that's probably where you can expect us to show up. As you said, the label for this year's cask-strength just snuck out today.
Yeah.
So even with that one, we're trying to take things that are familiar and add little spins to it, like I keep saying. So, again, not rock the boat completely, but do little things that are going to surprise people. And, right now I'm playing around with, we haven't had a cellar collection out since I've been here. So obviously that's something I'm looking at too.
That is one of my favorite release.
Yes, sir. So I'll keep it vague, but I'll give you that much.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. now, my last question is: you obviously have been around a lot of spirit, so we're gonna put your feet to the fire.
Oh boy.
Feet to the fire.
Oh boy.
You have no access to Angel's Envy. What are you drinking?
Well, if you want me to give you the most honest answer, I'm probably drinking like a Modelo or a Guinness or something.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
I find, like, dude, look at this damn desk.
Yep. Yep.
Look at that wall behind me. Like, I spend all day at work just completely immersed in bourbon, and that's not to say I don't drink bourbon or scotch or rye while I'm out. But at the end of a long day, a lot of times I'm just drinking a beer, if I'm being honest. On the weekend, I mean, I probably drink, if I'm at a bar and they got some bottle. It could be mezcal, it could be a new scotch. Normally I'm just reaching for whatever thing I haven't had yet, and it's exciting to me, right? Maybe somebody who's using a new cask finish, somebody who's doing something different. And so I guess more broadly, I'm just trying to reach for keep my palate going and find something new out there.
I would tell you right now, for all of you guys here right now, I want to make sure you know the website has always been the same and will remain the same. Is angelsenvy.com.
Yes, sir.
You just have to get on there, and next thing you know, you can schedule your tour, you can schedule the visit. Guess what? If you don't want to sit around with everybody else and just want to make sure you get a chance to visit and do and get your bottle through your visit, make sure you schedule your Angels Envy right now. It's angelsenvy.com. It's Angels Envy on Facebook. It is on um, Instagram, on all your social media, even on YouTube here. It is Angels Envy. Remember, it's not about the man, it's about the team. And it takes a
Hell
great
yeah.
leader to create amazing things on a bigger scale and the scale that we have right now. I want to remind you, if you don't follow Angels Envy, make sure you follow them. Communication there flows quite quickly. Yes, we know things before it happen, but most of the time, Owen cannot tell you what's happening. He's just creating. He can't tell you. So make sure you follow the social media so you can get the up to date information. And if you want to visit, they make it very easy for you to book and actually go on the website. But no one leaves this show and being at the scale that you are, Owen, without advice that does not suck. We need one advice that you heard from your guru, from your life coach, from hey, sometimes I've heard somebody say from my wife because they're always right. And anybody else in this life that you hold dear, that is your compass in what you do. You don't wake up in the morning and become Owen Martin and create what you create without having some sort of a compass in what you do. So would that give us one advice that we can take with us that does not suck?
Okay. Yeah, I like that. That's a hell of a way to end. I think that my advice is just don't be a snob. Like good whiskey is camaraderie. It's being inclusive. It's like you said, it takes a group, it takes a village for us to make good whiskey. I want my bar team involved. I want my distillers involved. I want my quality guys involved. And it takes a village to consume good whiskey too, right? Like if you're with somebody who's never had bourbon before, like bring them into the fold. Don't turn your nose up if they don't like something or your 120 proof thing doesn't go over well. Like I think it's all about education and being inclusive and kind, and that's what I try to bring to the table every day, and that's what I hope the people that are drinking our stuff are too.
You know what? We couldn't have ended this any better way than this. I'll make sure it is displayed to show that don't be a snob, right? Be inclusive, be kind. That's the best way to actually live this life. I will tell you right now, Owen, I thank you so much for making time. Thanks, Angels Envy, for making sure they arranged to make sure you are here. I cannot wait for what you bring on. I cannot wait for what is coming up on the market. But I will tell you right now, if you don't know the man, if you're watching the recast, this I'm gonna put this in the hood word. This is the motherfucker y'all should keep your eyes on. When you come
Thank
to
you.
whiskey, keep your eyes on this motherfucker because he knows exactly where he's going, and he's about to create some wave in the industry. So keep an eye on him because he knows he is part of a revolution, the revolution of new flavor and new amazing things, and he's gonna make it happen. For all of you out there, if this is your first time on the channel, I am Jack Bigadoo, also known as the Hood Sommelier, and he is Owen Martin, also known as Oven Martin.
Well, hey, like you said, I'm a new dad. I couldn't take it. I have to have dad puns where I can use them, man.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'll make a professional Instagram someday, but I'm gonna fight that as long as I can.
Oven Mitten is his handle online. He is Owen Martin, and thank you all so much for joining us on all the platform. And remember, if you have any question, make sure you reach out. Make sure you actually come on, send us a message, and I'll be sure to text Owen and say, "Hey, we have questions. We want to know more." And if you get a chance to actually grab yourself a bottle of the newest Angels Envy bottle and bond cask strength, tag Angels Envy, tag the Hood Sommelier channel. We'll be more than happy to actually share with the world and tell us what you think. I'm biased. I really think this is amazing, but we'll see what you think. For all of you out there, I hope you have an amazing Tuesday, and we'll see you next time. Cheers, everyone.
Take it easy.